Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. The Spirit of Tasmania vessels will have a new Victorian home in Geelong under a landmark new deal. TT Line is ditching Station Pier in Port Melbourne after our government accused Vic Ports of price gouging. The move will increase travel times to Melbourne's CBD, but the company says its brand new hub will be easier and more efficient for freight companies and travellers.
This industrial port is set to become the new mainland home for our Spirit of Tasmania vessels. TT Line announcing today its Victorian dock will move from inner Melbourne to the satellite city of Geelong.
Quite frankly, we've just outgrown it. We believe that our capacity constraints are pretty serious there, and that's been shown by, the feedback we've had from our customers.
The existing service takes around 9 to 11 hours, docking at Station Pier in the inner city suburb of Port Melbourne. The new sailings will take around the same time, but dock at Corio Quay, north of Geelong. That's an extra 1 hour drive between Melbourne, depending on traffic. But TT Line says the move addresses customer concerns.
Independent research of our passengers identified 3 key elements that support a move to Geelong. A location that was easy to get to, ease of check-in procedures and a lack of traffic getting to and from the terminal.
Most tourists aren't looking to go to Melbourne, they're looking to go to the mainland, they're looking to go to Victoria.
This is a concept design for what the 12-hectare site will look like. The purpose-designed passenger terminal to include a marshalling area for 600 cars, easier check-in, amenities, a playground and a pet exercise area.
We can have a dedicated terminal only used by us. That will be far, far more efficient, will be world-class technology right throughout.
Promising there will be no job losses and the price of a ticket will not increase. The move also aiming to address current freight concerns.
The new Geelong facility will feature a dedicated freight terminal, streamlined and segregated passenger and freight entry and exit points, 150 truck parking bays and a 24/7 secure freight yard.
It's also within 40 minutes of 80% of our freight customers' needs.
The shake-up comes after tense negotiations over our continuing use of Station Pier. Tasmanian government accused Victoria Ports of price gouging as they tried to bargain a new lease. Now the site upgrades will be paid for by Geelong Ports, but the cost of the new deal remains a mystery.
I'm not able to talk specific numbers, but there's a very significant difference. We're going to a much better facility for much less comparative cost.
TT Line's lease in Port Melbourne ends in November 2022, with work on the Geelong site to start immediately. Michelle Wisby, 7 Tasmania News.
And in reaction to the move, some Tasmanian travellers have questioned the extra driving time to Melbourne, but peak industry groups are welcoming the shake-up. Caravanners say it will be an easier commute without having to tackle city traffic. And while the freight sector now faces new logistical challenges, it says the change will ultimately be better.
The Spirit of Tasmania ships have been a bright red billboard for our state, proudly displayed to the people of Melbourne at Station Pier. Now we're set to lose that position, but the caravanners say moving the dock an hour away won't hurt tourism.
The onloading and offloading regime in Port Melbourne, that's old infrastructure. We regularly see the streets of Port Melbourne being choked up, and that's not really the experience we want.
For Tasmanian travellers heading to Victoria, the new route does mean arriving further away from the city. But this may provide a relief from those tricky hook turns in front of trams and is closer to the Great Ocean Road.
I think it will increase tourism. We've got the Geelong and the Bellarine Peninsula on the doorstep. We get a lot of tourism from the boat coming down to Geelong, so this will just shorten their trip down to the Great Ocean Road.
They can get on the road quickly to their next destination or coming on board into Tasmania. The actual site is just phenomenal.
The move also provides space for freight to be held while waiting for collection. Currently at Station Pier, freight must be picked up immediately. But it does add extra travel time for trucks carrying our goods north to Sydney and beyond.
We've got traffic flows to take into consideration. However, I guess the best aspect of this is that we have about a year and a half to re-establish our supply chains to ensure that they comply.
Another transition, 2 new larger Spirit of Tasmania vessels are still on the way, despite the government ditching the original European shipbuilder as it faced significant financial struggles.
We're still in discussion, remain in very positive discussion with a shipyard in Europe, and that's going according to plan. That's going full steam ahead.
Labor has called for more information on the cost of the lease and for the market research behind the decision to be made public. Louise Huber, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmanian police officers are rallying around their Victorian colleagues, saying it's a loss felt across the nation. The state's police association says our officers are today grieving, many feeling as if they've lost a family member. It's encouraging any officers impacted by the incident to reach out if they need support.
Take it easy. If you're not feeling well, then get some support. There's no shame or heartache in doing that. And if you're a member of the public, just have some understanding of what we're going through.
Last year, Tasmania introduced new laws for drivers to slow down to 40 around emergency vehicles displaying flashing lights in an effort to keep our emergency workers safer on the front line. The Premier is making no promises on lifting COVID restrictions in the northwest and is warning the region's schools may not reopen in the short term. Overnight, 4 more cases emerged from the outbreak. 2 are health workers.
Burny's empty streets show the impacts of the nation's strictest shutdown, but orders closing major retailers and other stores are due to expire on Sunday.
However, I do want to ready the northwest for the circumstance that this may not occur for another week.
Potentially making life harder for parents.
Because if we aren't able to lift the additional restrictions, obviously schools may not be able to open across the northwest.
With tough restrictions come even tougher questions.
How Tasmania went from being ahead of the curve against COVID-19 by closing our borders early to getting a spike in cases in the northwest coast.
It seems likely that healthcare workers picked up the virus probably from a Ruby Princess passenger who was being cared for.
Again retracting his dinner party comments in front of the Senate committee, Professor Murphy today praised Tasmania's efforts.
It's really just an example of how rapidly an outbreak can occur, and it was bad luck, and it's no fault of anybody in Tasmania that it happened there.
An interim report into what started the outbreak is expected in the coming days. Last night, 4 more people from the northwest brought the state's total cases to 205. 8 lives have been lost, 91 have recovered. Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmanian company Fairbrother has stood down some of its workforce as we head towards a construction drought. Tasmania's peak industry body says more stimulus is needed as local builders brace for an uncertain future.
At a residential development in Punchbowl, construction is flat out. The fear is whether it will fall flat when winter sets in.
It's a bit uncertain. We're pretty steady with the contracts that we had previously, which will carry us on for the next few months. I'm not sure about 6 to 8 weeks will sort of tell us the story of where we're going to be at.
Chris Reisig has been building homes for 20 years. A residential boom going into the pandemic gave him some insurance, but he says new inquiries are dropping off, although he'll do whatever he can to keep his team on the tools.
It not only filters my direct men, but it filters through all my subcontractors, electricians alike, plumbers.
Workers at Fairbrother aren't so lucky. Part of its Launceston team has been stood down following a wave of cancelled and postponed projects. The company says the worst is yet to come, predicting an even bigger downturn in 6 months' time when existing projects run out of steam.
If we can't provide some incentives for developers to greenlight those projects, then, we are likely to see some job losses.
Master Builders Tasmania says both commercial and residential work is on shaky ground.
We've already provided an additional $50 million to bring forward maintenance of public buildings.
That's extremely welcomed. But moving forward, we are going to need to do more, particularly to encourage private sector investors.
Tom Johnson, 7 Tasmania News.
Hydro Tasmania has released a series of white papers backing up its plan for pumped hydro developments. The studies highlight the changes expected to the national electricity market, including the transition to low-cost wind and solar. Its paper estimates the nation will need 20 times the amount of energy storage than exists now. Hydro says Tasmania's key strength is what it calls deep storage. The study says we have more opportunity to develop pumped hydro that can deliver energy for essentially a longer stretch. A Tasmanian holiday island is rallying together in the face of coronavirus disruption. A local pub offered up free meals to the community as it prepared to close its doors just a few weeks ago. But from there, the idea has well and truly blown up.
In the heart of picturesque Bruny Island, this Tasmanian pub is cooking up a storm after a simple but generous idea took off earlier this month.
Made this beautiful soup up. It was a big commercial sized pot. Took 2 of us to lift it off the stove, and potato and leek soup. I thought, right, what are we going to do with this? I thought, well, you know, we could freeze it all down, but why don't we just maybe give it away to the people in our local community?
Despite a downturn in business, Hotel Bruny is serving up free delicacies once a week to keep the community full, with some offering to deliver to vulnerable residents.
We're delivering food to gorgeous dear old Helen, who is an elderly resident. She's just loving it. It's making her feel connected. It's making her feel part of the community when she's really quite isolated.
There's also some people that live alone, and they're the ones that I feel are feeling a bit remote, and they're feeling a little bit lonely. So to be able to say to those people, hey, you know, someone's dropping off a seafood chowder for you tonight, have some dinner on us. It's been a nice thing to be able to do.
It comes as the local economy struggles with an absence of tourists. But despite tough times, community members are still donating, offering up $200 to go towards each week's round.
We've actually got a backlog at the moment. So if we're giving away some food every single week, we're backed up for about another 5 weeks at the moment. And I think that just speaks volumes of the community and the human spirit.
I think on the whole, the island is really pulling together and using all the resources that we have here. So we're able to stay safe, we're able to stay home, and we're certainly able to stay as strong as possible.
Ruby Kamain, 7 Tasmanian News.
Well, pub gigs are being brought back to life thanks to some creative thinking. Not ones to sit silently, musicians are now beaming performances into online gatherings. Hobart promoters struck up the idea to keep corporate bookings locked in.
It's one thing to practice in your lounge room, but then to actually have an audience that's participating, and surprisingly they're finding that the audiences through these sessions actually engage more.
You got to adapt, and that's why it's such a brilliant thing, because people still want to play, people still have the talent, and as I say, they've been working on it for years, getting their skills together, and it means we can still keep practicing and being involved.
Yeah, and yes, the artists still take requests from the audience. Now, still on the arts, and Launceston's Junction Arts Festival is the latest event to be crushed by coronavirus. Organisers say the festival will now take place in September next year due to the ongoing uncertainty over travel and gatherings. This year was meant to be the 10th anniversary of the event. As shutdowns continue to place pressure on hospitality, one Tasmanian business is lending a hand to its fellow workers. The owners are raising funds to help keep the local industry alive, and those donating could be in for a reward as well.
A hospitality duo looking over the branding of a special campaign to help their pandemic-impacted industry.
So we're doing selling some T-shirts to raise money for some businesses that are struggling through in Hobart at this time.
Pop-up company Knuckle Sandwich, allocating $10 of every shirt sold to boost customer numbers.
Bars, food places, cafes, a few wholesale wine and alcohol places. There'll be a $100 voucher from each of those venues, and everyone goes into the draw to win one of those.
Everyone's supporting everyone, and that's really amazing to see, and hopefully some good can come out of a not so good situation.
As they feel uncertain themselves if hospitality restrictions will be lifted anytime soon.
I think it would be amazing if that was the case, but I think realistically we don't really know, so we've just got to all do what we can in the meantime and with the restrictions in place, and this is our way of doing that.
The cause using the creative tools from another struggling industry. The logo designed by this local tattoo artist to help keep his art in the public sphere.
Like hospitality, the tattoo industry came to a halt, so I knew firsthand how scary it was to lose your income. We wanted to do something that showed unity, so we did a play on a traditional handshake design, but rather than hands holding hands, we did it hands holding sandwiches.
And with just one day left to order a t-shirt, the sandwich whizzes say they've already sold well beyond their expectations.
It's incredible, and so many people buying them are people that are hospitality workers that aren't working at the moment, and it just shows the strong sense of community.
Ruby Kamane, 7 Tasmanian News.
Negotiations over Hawthorn's future in the state beyond 2021 have been put on hold until the end of the year. Premier Peter Gutwein spoke with Hawks CEO Justin Reeves and President Jeff Kennett today, agreeing to defer negotiations. Meanwhile, the idea of hosting quarantine hubs in the state has received some legitimacy, with the Premier speaking with AFL boss Gil McLachlan about how a fixture might look. Teams would potentially be based in Launceston and Hobart under the Radical plan. Although the whistle has blown on most sports for the time being, golf courses are open and the sport's local body wants players back on the green. It comes with a warning though. Golf Tasmania says players should keep gloves on, not share carts and leave flags in the hole, while keeping an appropriate distance from other players.
I think initially there were a few teething problems, but I think now we're very confident the clubs are abiding and the golfers feel it's a very privileged position to be able to play golf at all.
Currently, golf is banned in Victoria and the Northern Territory.
Good evening. Mostly sunny over the southeast and east today, with cloud over the northwest and west. A few light showers, only very light though. Hobart 18 degrees, Launceston 16, Bruny 17 today and Devonport 15 degrees. Grove and Ooze our top with 19, Friendly Beaches 18, Strawn, St Helens, Smithton and Flinders Island all on 17, Low Head and King Island 16 today. The early cloud was mainly over the west and north before high cloud streamed across the state in the afternoon. A band of high-level cloud over our region stretches back across Western Victoria, South Australia and eastern WA. Some low-level cumulus cloud gathered over the east coast of the nation. Tomorrow a cold front clears the state in the morning, but another will push over us tomorrow night. The high over the mainland drifts towards New South Wales. Winds west-northwesterly 20 to 30 knots and reaching 35 knots over the far south in the afternoon. Swells at 3 metres in the west and south. Gale warning, that's on from Tasman Island to Low Rocky Point. We have a strong wind warning from Stanley to Wineglass Bay and also from Low Rocky Point to Sandy Cape and also for the southwest lakes. Heading into tomorrow, we can expect a windy day, partly cloudy for Hobart, 17 the top, same for Campania, 16 the high for Huonville. Launceston tomorrow, 18 the high, partly cloudy, very windy as well, 17 for Devonport, becoming windy for Georgetown and 16 degrees. 17 for Bruny, partly cloudy, a showery day for Strawn, 16 the top, 17 for Wynyard. And for St Helens tomorrow, mostly sunny and 18. 18 as well for Swansea, windy for Port Arthur, 16 the maximum. The Anzac Day forecast is fine but cloudy for Hobart and up the east coast, but a shower over the west, far south and north. Showers easing on Sunday, contracting to the west and far south in the late afternoon. And on Monday, a windy day with more showers over the west, south and north. Partly cloudy in Perth tomorrow, along with Adelaide and Melbourne. Sunny day for Canberra. Warm weather for Sydney and Brisbane. Still cloudy around the state, 16 in Hobart at the moment, Launceston 13 and Devonport 14 degrees. And Kim, I see that you're suffering from the lockdown, same way I am, with the fact that our hairdressers aren't open at the moment. It's so hard to keep ourselves perfectly groomed, isn't it?
Oh my goodness, you haven't got my hair. It's the first week, Murph, the first week. You are evil. That is your news for now. I'll have updates throughout the night. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm not so sure about Murph. Good night.